New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here today again. For those of you that watch regularly, I'm so glad that you're here. And for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, I'm really glad that you found us. We are all about having conversations with soul-centered individuals that are channeling their time, their talent, their energy, their resources, their love, their joy, their creativity, everything into doing good work in the world and really making a difference. And so you can find us here every Monday and we dive in and have a conversation. And today I'm having a conversation with someone that is very near and dear to my heart, Christie Walker Bos. She is a friend of mine from way back. There she is. For those of you that are watching, you can see her. And where are you, Christie?
I am in Desert Hot Springs, California.
Very nice. And I'm in Utah. We've got a storm coming in today, and you're probably in the shorts and sandals weather.
No, actually, we had a storm that came in last night, and we had some rain, and I'm looking out the window, and there's snow on San Jacinto.
Huh,
so
nice.
It's a little chilly for the desert today, but it'll warm up tomorrow.
Yeah, it always does. This time of year, the weather, you can't predict it. I remember because I used to live in Big Bear Lake with you in Southern California, and we would have this saying, I don't know if you did, but yes, only fools and flatlanders predict the weather. I don't know.
My saying was, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good one. So Christie and I met years ago. I was trying to think of the actual date. I'm thinking it was around 1998 or 99.
I think it was more like 2001 because
okay.
I moved to Big Bear in 2001.
Oh,
so
okay.
It would have been shortly after that, yeah.
Because we collaborated on a women's conference or retreat there in Big Bear Lake that was titled The Women of Wisdom. And I remember you being a part of the team, and we got started, I think, in 99. And so you came in a little bit after and were a huge resource for us with all of your mad skills in editing and marketing and your husband's skills, graphic design, and so much more. So those are some good memories. And
yes.
We'll dive into that a little bit. So you're more than someone that lives in Desert Hot Springs and Big Bear Lake. You are an author and you're an adventurer. I know that's a broad term, but we'll dive into that a little bit. And I really connected with you through your photography too. And so I want to talk about all of that and more, but I'd love for us to get to know you a little bit more. So where were you born? What's your origin story? Can you share a little bit about that?
So I'm second generation Californian, which is, kind of rare, maybe not anymore. But so my parents were born in California and I was born in LA. And for a while, I just moved from LA to San Fernando Valley. And then in the Valley, I moved from Canoga Park to Van Nuys to Reseda. I didn't move very far until we moved to Orange County, but I've never lived anywhere other than California. I've considered it, but every time I think of it, I go, well, is there an ocean? Is there a desert? Are there the mountains? And that's kind of unique to California, is that within a couple of hours, you could be at the beach, you could be at the top of the mountain skiing, you could be out in the desert on a dune buggy, you can do all these different things. And that's what I really love about it. Like when you say I'm an adventurer, I wouldn't say that, but I am an outdoors person, and I do love all the different choices you have in California. So I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I was not a Valley girl. I lived in Oak Park. Valley girls were Ventura, Sherman Oaks, and you had money. We were very middle class. My dad was a construction plumber. And when it rained, which it did a lot more in the 60s, he couldn't work. And so my mom would literally save for a rainy day. And I remember she'd get the paycheck on Friday. She'd turn it into cash, and she'd put $5 in this envelope, $5 in this envelope, $5 in this envelope to, be able to pay the bills. And I had 3 other siblings. We were all 4 years apart. So I shared a bedroom with my sister, Lori, who was 4 years younger. And then my 2 brothers, Ken and Jeff, they shared a bedroom. And I remember when my youngest brother, he's 12 years younger, they went to the hospital. My sister and I were like praying, just praying, please be a boy, because otherwise there would be 3 girls in one bedroom and Ken would get a bedroom all to himself, which seemed totally unfair.
Yeah, completely.
So when we got the call that it was a boy, we made this huge sign that said, joy, joy, it's a boy. And we put it on the garage, and our parents thought that was so nice, but it was totally selfish.
That it sounds like those were some special days growing up in that area. And when you were talking about it, I was thinking of all of the fires that have just happened in January. And well, there's always seems to be fires going on in America, especially in California. Yes. But that must have been, I know it was really hard for me. And we never lived in LA. We lived in Laguna Beach, Dana Point, and then up in Big Bear, which is, close, but not that close. But would spend a lot of time going to LA. It was only for half an hour away from us. But you actually lived there. Were there areas that were affected, people's homes that you knew that were lost during the fires? During
this round of fires, or in the past?
This one, yeah.
Yeah. I only knew one person. So we have house concerts up in Big Bear, and where we bring in bands. And one of the bands, Ooks of Hazard, they were like 7 ukulele players. They were great. And we became friends with one of them. And he had a music store in Pacific Palisades that was his father's. And then it was his. It was like a family business, all these guitars. He taught guitar lessons and everything, and then he was in a band, and they lost the store, and then he lost his home. So it was like a double whammy. He lost, just like so many people, they lost their business or their way of life and their home. So it's like, how do you make money to build a new home, or take care of your needs when you lose your business as well? Yeah. So we were supporting him. Yeah.
Yeah. I that's a really fun name, Ooks of Hazard there. Yeah. So we'll talk about your house concerts too. I forgot all about that part. There's so many things on your list of things that we get to talk about. And
lots of hats.
I know. And talking about fires, we actually, when we moved from Big Bear Lake to Utah, back in 2003, can't believe it's been that long. We right when we were about to move that week, we had a fire evacuation in Big Bear Lake, and we had to move down to Joshua Tree, and for a few days to escape the flames. And thank God our house that we just sold didn't burn to the ground. But yeah, there's always that risk or that reality of fires in that area.
Yes, I mean we evacuated that time, and then there was I think it was last year. There was also another fire, and it wasn't near our house, but the smoke was so bad that we said we got to get out of here. So we came down to the desert until the air cleared, literally.
Yeah,
it was bad.
So back to your childhood a bit. Was you talk about your brothers and sister? Is it 2 and 2, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And your parents being first generation Californians. So what was your childhood like? Because I know you're a writer, and was that something that you were always interested in? And what got you started with writing?
Well, I had a wonderful childhood, which makes me kind of an oddity. I found that out as an adult when you're sitting around, at work and people are talking about their horrible childhoods, abuse, all these alcoholic parents, all this. I had none of that. I had no trauma. So in my stories, I have to invent trauma because I don't really have any. So I had a great childhood. My parents were great. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was, went to all my volleyball games and carpooled for field trips. So, and I was the oldest, so I thought I was the queen, and which my siblings, that's the joke. Oh, the queen. And then, and then my brother Ken is the oldest boy, so he's the king. And then Jeff is the baby. And poor Lori, she didn't have a title for a long time, but we've given her the title now of Saint Lori because she spends the most time with my mom, weeks and weeks at a time. And so we're like, oh, Lori, you're a saint. So now she's very happy she has a title. So I had a great childhood, and we'd go on these family vacations. My dad would get 2 weeks every summer. And it was like, we're going on vacation. You're sick, get in the car, here's a bucket. You got a fever, here's some aspirin, get in the car. Nothing would stop my mom because this was her vacation to get away from the house. And so we'd go on these great vacations and it was always camping because, we didn't have a lot of money. And a lot of times we'd go with my aunt and uncle, Auntie Pat and Uncle Lloyd, and their 2 kids. My cousin Steve was like my, sidekick. We just got in all kinds of fun trouble. And I decided there was so much fun happening that I would always do a diary of the trip, write down everything that was happening. We had lots of car trouble, which was always exciting for a person, we got towed, or whatever. And then the last day of the trip, my family would say, okay, we'd sit around a campfire and they'd tell me to read what I had written, which was so affirming,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then 7th and 8th grade, I entered some contests, what the Bill of Rights means to me.
No.
Not a really exciting topic, but it was a contest for schools in Southern California. And I actually won. I forget what I won, but I got like a $50 savings bond. And I was like, oh my God, $50, that was like a fortune. And then till my mom explained to me what a savings bond was, I had to wait for 12 years. It's like, back then it's like, I'll be dead in 12 years, this piece of paper is useless. But, and then, so that was encouraging because that was the first little thing. Oh, you can actually make money writing. And then I entered again in 8th grade and won again. So I got 2 savings bonds. This time I knew. Yeah, savings bond. Okay, great. Thanks. But actually, all those savings bonds, I had those 2, and my grandparents, they actually, by the time I got married, I cashed them all in, and that paid for my wedding. So,
Whoa.
Yeah. So writing's been good to me and my grandparents. So that started me on the path. Then in high school, I was on the newspaper staff and wrote satirical columns. It was back when Jaws came out. That's how old I am. I don't remember what year that was, but I did a funny column on Jaws and got a lot of good feedback for that. So, yeah, and then I went to college, and I had really good grades. My whole high school education was focused on going to college because that's what you do, right? I belonged to a million clubs. I was in National Honor Society, took advanced placement classes. And by the time I graduated, I was like, I am so sick of working so hard that I didn't want to apply to a four-year college because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I thought that would be a waste of my parents' money to just go to this expensive school and just kind of, I don't know, not, if I had a dream of something, then yeah, but I didn't. So I went to community college right down the street. I could ride my bike actually. And I just started taking every class that sounded interesting. I took all the ologies, introduction to marine biology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, because they've all interested me. But then when I looked into what it took to have a career in that and how much money you got paid, like an archaeologist, you're digging in the sand somewhere and you don't get anything. And marine biology, you're not Jacques Cousteau. You're the guy cleaning the barnacles off the boat. So it was like, yeah, so I kept searching, and then I found photography. And so I started taking photography 1, photography 2, photojournalism, portrait photography. And I started off, I wasn't very good. As a matter of fact, my teacher said in a nicer way, but he basically said, you suck. And I should probably do something else. And you can have two reactions to when somebody tells you something like that. You can say, okay, I give up, or you can say, I'm going to show you. So I knew that he was telling me that my pictures were very static. Well, that's why, because I had this weird camera that you had to look down into it. And then like if something, when I was looking and something was over here, it was really over there. And I would, it was like really weird. It wasn't a single reflex camera. So I worked during the summer, various jobs, saved up and got a real camera. And what I'm amazing, my photography improved. And I ended up showing him. I became award-winning at the school. And that launched my photojournalism career. I got an internship with the LA Times for 6 months, which really helped my portfolio. And then I got a job with the Daily News, which is in the San Fernando Valley. And so that's where the photography came in. But here was a funny thing. When I'm working for the Daily News, so remember, I was a writer first. And I would write out my captions when I turned in my photos. And I turned them in and the editor desk, they're like, what's this? And I said, well, it's the caption for the photo. Oh, no. We have writers who do that. You're a photographer. We have professionals. And I'm thinking, okay, I was there. I know who the people in the picture were. So later, when I went freelance, when I had my kids, I didn't want to be a press photographer while I was having kids. I learned a little trick. When I submitted stuff to magazines, I would submit it as a writer. And then I'd say, I know a photographer who can supply you photos. And the photographer's name was, so my married name at the time was Christie Costanzo. And the photographer's name was Marie Walker, which was my middle name and my maiden name. And I got paid.
Oh my.
As a writer. And then I got paid for the photographs because I had tried it before saying, oh, I can take pictures. And they said, no, we'll get a photographer to do that for you. Because, nobody can do both. That's impossible. So I just found a loophole and got paid twice. So
awesome.
That was fun.
So who was the biggest influence in your life, do you think, during those time, during your childhood and college years, was there a person or a couple of people that made a significant impact on you to support you in these ventures?
I'd say growing up, it was my dad, because he didn't categorize me as a girl, meaning he showed me how to change the oil in the car. I was the oldest, so I was mowing the lawn. I would help him do cement work. He didn't say, "Oh, you're a girl, you can't do that." And he would actually take me to work with him on his job sites. And I loved it. I almost became a plumber because of that, until I developed breasts. And then that became a problem, because all the people all the guys on the job site were like, "Who's that?" My dad was constantly going, "That's my daughter, stop it." And, it was like, this is not going to work. But so he always told me there's nothing I couldn't do. At one point, I was going to join the Army because he was in the Army, and, he said, "Sure." And then I wanted to go on this adventure thing for a month where you climb mountains and kayak and live alone in the forest. And he was like, "Sure, you earn the money for the class and we'll pay for your airfare." And so, there was nothing that I would bring to my dad that he ever said, "Well, you can't do that." He didn't say I couldn't do that. And he never said you couldn't do that because you were a girl.
Yeah. I had the same experience with my dad. My mother left me with my dad when I was 5. And so from 5 to 14, it was me and my dad. Well, he got married a little bit later and I had a stepmother, but I never thought of myself as a boy or a girl. I just was supported in everything. And he took me to work and took me to, things that I'm so glad that I had that experience and that encouragement to be myself, and to not limit myself based on those gender issues or roles or stereotypes. Sounds like we had dads that sort of came from that same cloth, maybe.
Yes. And then did it surprise you then when you were out in the real world and you ran into people saying, "Well, you can't do that because you're a woman"? I was like shocked. It's like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. Same. Yeah. When I've done things and people will say, "Oh, you're so brave." And it's like, for what? I'm just being me and expressing myself and doing what I want to do. It just doesn't occur to me. I mean, I'm more aware of it now. And last night we had a little chat, and your picture on my phone came up and you're wearing a little, pink pussy hat. And I also knitted those and marched on the Capitol here in Utah. And I was, so I have come around to, find myself as a little bit of a feminist, but that's to support women in realizing their power. And that kind of leads to another way that we first connected when you moved from LA up to Big Bear Lake, and that's where I was living at the time. And me and a group of women in Big Bear were forming a group to have a retreat that we called Women of Wisdom California. And so we put on, I think the first one was in 2001? I think it was.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And then we went on for a few years, and I left in 2003. So I know you continue to work with that group, but we did bring this group of women together from all over California and beyond, really, to come up to Big Bear to have an adventure, really, in the mountains. It was a 2-night, 3-day retreat where we would have guest speakers and opportunities to do things like ropes courses. And I don't know, what do you remember about those days? What was your impression of coming to Big Bear and finding this group of women that were putting on a women's retreat?
Well, I think we talked about this before too. It's like up until I moved to Big Bear, I didn't have a lot of female friends. I'd have like one girlfriend or, at a time, a couple work girlfriends or whatever. But it wasn't until I moved to Big Bear and I met this group of women that I really discovered that if you have the right group of women, they can really be supportive and be your friends. And during the Women of Wisdom conference, there was a thing like a circle where we were all sharing. And I shared that. And there were so many women who were like, oh my God, me too, me too, me too, me too. And so I don't know if it had just, we had all gotten to a point in our lives that we were older and wiser and we're not like competing. I don't know what it is about younger women that, competing with each other with how they look or, with the guys. I don't know what it is, but all that was gone and it was amazing. And I'd never connected with women like that before. And I was kind of like shocked. And a lot of those women like Barbara Jordan and, Carol Treadwell.
Robin Bradley.
Yeah, I'm still friends with them. And as a matter of fact, I belong to a circle with Carol Treadwell and Barbara Jordan, and where we're still sharing and in a safe space. And that was all new to me. And so my husband didn't move up at the same time I did. I moved up first because I could work virtually, and he was doing like 410s. And he'd come up and like one day I had like 6 new girlfriends. He's like, geez, you work fast. How did that happen? I go, actually, it was kind of like a miracle. It was, I was invited to this event. And Fawn Skin, do you know Nancy Walker?
Oh, yeah.
Fawn Skin. So my neighbor was a musician. So, oh, come to this event. And I was by myself because Robbie wasn't up yet. And I said, okay. And so I show up and they're like, who are you? And the guy who invited me didn't even show up. So they're just like, well, come on in. And then you start the whole, what do you do? What do you do? And this woman heard me say I was in the eyewear industry. She came zooming across the room and said, oh my God, I'm in the eyewear industry and blah, 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 blah. And then she said, you need to join this group. And the next thing I know, I was meeting you and Chandra and Robin Bradley and all these amazing women. And I was like, yes. And I was like, what's this going to be like, because you get a group of women in the same room. It's like going to be, at least that was my experience. And so this was so different. And it was like amazing. And
I love hearing you talk about that because, wind back a couple of years when we were sitting around, this was a concept at the time of like, how can we, I had a support group that I used to lead called Stepping Stones to Conscious Living. And we were talking about how women can be, just our worst enemies. Mm-hmm. That if we could like break out of that patterning and come together to share our wisdom, strength, and all of that. And so I remember Beth Gardner, who at the time, she was in the corporate world, and she led us through a visioning on how to create a mission statement to support this group. And we were at Jean Sweet's house. Do you remember Jean?
Yes, of course.
We were talking about, we want to embrace our commonalities, and we want to honor our differences. And so to hear you saying all that, because you joined us a couple of years later, it was as though that visioning, that like setting the intention, that coming up with a mission and vision statement really, rippled out and drew you in, because that consciousness was already established within the heart of what this was. And so to hear you say that it had been a struggle for you to really make bonds and connections with, women in general. And you and I talked about this too. Me too. I'd have one woman friend, but just would always stay away from those cliques and groups because it was hard. And for us as women in our middle years to come together and to create that container for healing, for conversations, for connections. And I have to say, my husband's writing in comments, empowering each other via acceptance of our unique gifts and challenges. There he goes. Thanks, Michael. To hear that it was that place for you. And I think the year that you came in, we also started to invite the youth, the younger women, to come in. And we had some, circles and dialogues to help younger women see that, we went through that too. 40, 50, 60 years ago, we went through those challenges with having trouble or struggles with making connections with other women. And here we are together, creating that space of building bonds and roots. I want to just take a moment. We're going to have a short break, and then we're going to come back and talk more with Christie about what she's doing now and the books that she's written. See you in a minute.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series, January 31st through April 4th. Embrace nonviolence every day with our 64 unique video meditations. Join us at 6 a.m. Mountain Time or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. Featuring a collection of New Thought voices, the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series. Only on New Thought Media Network, January 31st through April 4th.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back. I'm with my friend Christie Walker Bos, and we're talking about her life. We're talking about women, circles, and all kinds of things. And you've dropped a few hints of things that I want to pick up on. So you're an author. You also mentioned editing and working in the eyewear and optical area, or I don't know what you call that, world.
Yes.
And I know that you travel a lot. And I know you also have created this incredible urban adventure quest. So I want to talk a little bit about the work you do in the world and how you impact others through the things that you do. So what is your purpose? Like, what is, through your writing and through the things that you create, what is your overarching purpose?
Well, I would say is to educate through entertaining. So as you could probably tell by the first half hour, I'm not a really like serious, like, scholar type, I'm more like salt of the earth kind of person. And I find that a little bit of humor can help get messages across. And all of my writings, no matter if they have a serious subplot or whatever, it's done with a little bit of humor. It's kind of like Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. It's like, I read, as a writer, I read. That's one of the things you must do as a writer. You need to read other people's work. And sometimes I'm reading something and yeah, it's really good, but I'm just so depressed. It's like, this story is killing me. And there's only been one book I have ever just put down because it was so terrible. But no matter how depressing it is, I want to finish the book and find out what this author is trying to tell us. Like there was a book, American Dirt, about the immigrants. It was a mother and her son trying to escape Mexico from the drug lords who were trying to kill her. And the journey was just like, I'm bawling. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how many people finished this book. I mean, I was determined, but I never wanted that to happen in my books. I wanted to be able to have it entertaining enough that people enjoyed it and then weave my messages through that. So my first novel, because I never did fiction for all my life until I met Robbie. And then Robbie's my husband, for those who don't know. And it's a long story. I'm not going to go into it, but I made this list of things that I wanted in the perfect guy. And then I waited till I found somebody who filled that list. And Robbie got, I think it was 62 out of 65 things. So it was like, well, he must be the guy. So I had to marry him. So
I love that. And you wrote a book about that. And I love that book.
That was my first foray into fiction. And even though it was based on the experience of how I ended up with Robbie, I totally fictionalized it. And then I wrote another romantic comedy. And this one, I wanted to show that love didn't matter who the other person was. So the male protagonist in that one, the right man, he's in a wheelchair. And she doesn't know it at first because she meets him online and she sees this much like this. And she thinks he's in a chair because he does stuff like, he goes like this, woo, when he's teaching his class. And then later she finds out that he's in a wheelchair. But that doesn't stop her. And even though he's put off, like, who will love me? She's like, well, it's not about being in the chair. It's about you as a person. So heavy message. I did a lot of research with the community. I actually had, because it was a romance, there was going to be a sex scene with a guy in a wheelchair. And I wanted to know the ins and outs of that. So I found an online community and a guy named who called it his handle was Round Feet. So,
yeah, I remember you contacting me because my son's in a chair and you had a few questions for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of research, even though it's fiction, I want there to be enough truth. I mean, my fiction is based in reality. It's not like, fantastical or science fiction or whatever. It's real people in real situations. So, and then that brought me so I did a couple of romantic comedies, which were really fun. And then I wanted to do something a little bit more serious. And that's what led me to writing Fearless, which I think is my best. I've had a lot of people who told me they like that one the best. And And
Well,
so,
it's my favorite because I did the cover art.
yes, you did. You
And
said, wow, look at that.
yeah,
Doesn't that,
there it
you can
is.
tell that's her work. But there's the 4 women. And she did, I described to you, you know, this one is shorter and heavy breasts and a heavier person. This one's tall and thin, and this one, you know, so you really captured them in your.
Yeah, I can see it's Monica, it's Corey, Kate, and Trish.
Yes. Yep. And so the idea for this book was I think within every woman, you have opportunities, choices to what your life path is going to look like. And it used to be that you only had one choice, being a mother. That was the only choice society allowed you. But this was written in, you know, present day. And so I wanted to explore all the choices that were available at the time, you know, so a woman could just go straight career and just, you know, focus on that. No family, just hardcore career. Then somebody could do straight motherhood, you know, not have a career, just be a stay-at-home mom. And then like Kate, they could try to do both. And she did. And so she had kids, but she kept her career alive. And I think it was Trish who had the avocado farm with her mom. And even within that, Trish goes to this growers meeting, and she's the only woman avocado farmer and grower. And there's pushback, you know? So I'm exploring, and then she has migrant workers who she helps out and with the family. So through fiction, I was able to explore a lot of different themes,
Mm-hmm.
but do it in such a way, like, I don't think it helps anyone to hit them over the head with a hammer about, look how unfair this is, how they're treating her. It's easier through a fictional character to then live her experience of going to this meeting with all these jerks who are saying, who are you? You don't belong here. And her standing up for herself. So Corey, she was the character who was the TV personality.
Yeah, journalist on
Yes,
CNN.
So you can see, so a journalist, right? Oh, how did I come up with that? Now, I never worked for CNN. I didn't do that. Oh, stay-at-home mom. I did that for a while. Oh, a mom who is doing some freelance work and being a mom. Oh, where'd that come from? It was all fractions of me, you know, that I then expanded into what if I had just done journalism? What if I had just been a stay-at-home mom? And Monica was a photographer.
Yeah.
I wonder how I got that idea. You know, so, but what intrigued me, one of the other messages was that Corey was a victim of verbal abuse. And I really wanted to shine a light on that because.
And psychological abuse.
Yes. And that is not something that people really understand or recognize because there aren't any exterior bruises. You know, you can't call the police and say, you know, my husband's treating me poorly. You know, he's saying all these terrible things to me. He's calling me a loser constantly. They can't do anything about that. They won't. And so they barely do anything if you've been beaten up. You know, you have to have proof. You have to have bruises. You have to, you know, go get a swab test. And so the burden is always on the woman to prove what these things are happening to her. So I kind of wanted to bring to light this different type of insidious abuse and how it affects the person's view of themselves, and that it's up to the woman really to understand this so that she can break out. And my first husband was like that. And so it took another woman, a friend of mine, who said to me, this is your fault. And I was like, what? Excuse me? How is this my fault? And he said, because you're allowing it. You need to stop allowing it. You need to stand up for yourself and say, you are not allowed to do this anymore. And if you do, these will be the consequences. And she told me you need to do that when you're not in the middle of a fight, when you're not angry, because what would happen, I would try that and he'd say, oh, you're being hysterical. Oh, you're exaggerating. Oh, you're flying off the handle. Oh, you're running away. All these things. And then I'd argue about all that and I'd never get anywhere. So this woman's advice changed my life. And the weirdest thing, Allison, was when I told him, you can't do this anymore, because if you do, I'm going to take my purse and I'm going to go in the car and I'm going to drive away and go to a friend's house. And that's it. And it'll be a consequence of your action. It won't be me freaking out, losing my mind, getting hysterical. No, I'm telling you now, if you do this, this is what will happen. And he said, okay. I'm like, what? Why didn't I do this years ago? And so what I was hoping is that by sharing these kinds of experiences in a fictional form that's easier to digest, that hopefully I could help somebody else like this woman help me. So that's where Fearless came from.
It's beautiful. And I enjoyed reading it just recently in preparation for this conversation. And I could see all those aspects of you in each of the characters, how it was, woven in. And it was very touching to hear of Corey's story. Corey is the CNN journalist that has the abusive husband. And she then moves across the country and she had sort of bought into the system that said women have to be beautiful, and she had had cosmetic surgery and all of these things. And so in leaving her husband, finding that courage after 30 years, I think, to leave him, and then got rid of her fake boobs, got rid of her extensions, her eyelashes, and all of the things that went along with this image that this man had sort of told her was standard, or what he expected of her, or what the industry expected of her. To hear her story of leaving, of finding a voice and leaving, and then letting go of those things, it's not easy to step away from our comfort zone, or these relationships that have meant so much to us. And so I think in creating it in a story, in a novel, in fiction like this, is helpful for people to see it's possible, and to get ideas that can help them, like you did with your friends saying it was your fault, hearing things through, whether it's from a friend or through a book that you read, it helps us. And so I can see that all of the things that you're passionate about, in addition to this book, but all the things that you're passionate about, like climate, about our natural world, about women's rights, about, being a creative person in general, you are a voice for that, whether it's through your novels, whether it's, and I know that you're now on Substack, you've taken on that new platform to be able to express yourself and write different than the novels, obviously. So how is Substack supporting you in bringing, and I love the title, by the way, so will you share the title of your Substack? And I just read this morning your first post, so let's hear a little bit about that.
So a friend turned me on to Substack, which is a platform for writers. And there are categories, like if you go on Substack, you'll see there's all kinds of, you can click on humor, politics, health, any kind of category, and then you'll find all these writers. And I decided during these times, difficult times, I'm being bombarded everywhere, Facebook, friends, everything with their anger and rage at what's going on. And I share that, but I don't want it to take over my life. I can't be angry all the time. And what I was finding is, my phone keeps, lighting up with what the latest catastrophe is. And it's like, you can't get away from it. And so I made a decision that for my own personal health and the health of others, that I would look at the news in the morning, as so I'm not like oblivious. And then that would be it. I don't want to see it on Facebook and all these other places. And so through Substack, I decided to create a platform. You get to name your thing. And mine is called Humor for Humorless Times. Because the world we're living right now in isn't very funny. And so I wanted to give people and myself a break from all the mayhem. So I decided what I would do is take little slices of life and make it funny, show the funny side of it, and post that. And so my first one was called Anger Mismanagement, which was a direct response to why I even started this, with all this rage and anger, and how do you deal with it? And I kind of go through the different ways that women, it was funny, Robbie read it and he's going, well, you didn't say go to a bar and beat up somebody. And I said, well, that's really not what a woman would do when she's angry.
No, I love the how you the last way that women can cope, or anyone can cope with their anger and rage, is by cleaning the house.
Aggressive cleaning.
Aggressive cleaning.
Aggressive, just like, and honestly, I do that. I really do that. I have cleaned the whole house in rage.
Yeah, I mean, getting your hands on a vacuum cleaner and going to town, I mean, that is ways to release some of that pent up aggression. But
Yeah.
what I really enjoyed was your when you were talking about being at the grocery store and there was a kid that had a temper tantrum, threw himself down on the ground because he couldn't have the candy bar or whatever, and saying to the mother that, don't you wish you could do that too? Yeah. Can you imagine if we just gave ourselves permission to like have a full blown temper tantrum?
Well, it would be awesome. Well, and that's kind of what the scream is, but you normally do it in private, just scream into a pillow, or like in the car. I've done that, but then it hurt my throat, and I don't have a very good scream. It's like not that like movie scream where, the chainsaw guy's coming and that high pitched scream. Mine is more like a wounded bear or something. So nobody would come and save me. So I don't scream much, and more like, ah, but so that's where I came up with aggressive cleaning. And at the end, you're tired because you've been aggressively cleaning, and you're spent, and your house is clean. So it's a win-win. So I just finished my next one, and it's called Us Versus Them. And it's about an experience of going to a Forest Service meeting that was environmentalists on one side of the aisle and all the OHV guys on the other. And
what's OHV?
Off-highway vehicles. So it was in Big Bear. It really happened. Of course, I kind of exaggerate a little, but this really happened. And we were there because the OHV people wanted more roads through the forest. And the environmentalists were there to say, you got enough roads. You got enough roads. and leave some for us for the hikers and the horseback riders and all this. So it was really us versus them, and it was quite humorous. And you'll have to wait to read it, which will come out this Wednesday. So so I'm just picking slices of life that I think are funny. I had a weird dream that's going to be about one. Getting older. There's tons of funny stuff about getting older if you look at it right.
I definitely have to read those ones.
So I'm having fun with it, and I hope it gives people like a little giggle, a smile, a break in the madness. I'm committed to doing it for a year, every first and third Wednesday of the month. So
that's awesome. We need more humor in these humorless times.
Yes.
I did mention that you do this urban adventure quest, but so I want to have you quickly share a little bit about that, and then we'll say goodbye to you. Yeah. Oh. So tell us about Urban Adventure Quest and how people can find that.
Okay, so it's family owned and operated. I started it with my brother, his wife, and my husband and me. We were inspired by the show The Amazing Race, thinking, wouldn't it be great to be able to do that without having to travel around the world and all that. So we made a game, a smartphone guided scavenger hunt game that feels like The Amazing Race. And you do it in an urban city. There's one in, there's 70 across the country, but there's one in Salt Lake City. There's in LA, San Diego, Boston, Hawaii. They're everywhere. We had a great time traveling to all these places and making up these games. And it's very interactive, family friendly. And you just go to urbanadventurequest.com. And the cool thing, we've done it for, I think it's been 12 years. Might be a little longer. And now we're turning it over to the second generation. My daughter and her husband are going to take over the business and hopefully breathe new life into it, because all us baby boomers were tired. And but we did say we would be happy to travel anywhere they wanted to help them make a quest, because that was the best part of the company. Oh, let's go to Puerto Vallarta, make a quest.
It sounds amazing. Yeah. So I always end my show with this question. You know the song, What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love.
Yes.
What else does the world need now, Christie?
Oh, they need to slow their roll. They need to have some tolerance and quit being so angry. We're all people, and it doesn't matter, that we have different views. Why do we have to be so angry about it and try to make other people accept our views? Just be people, and it would be lovely. I mean, half of my family doesn't think the way I do, and yet we still love each other and are still a family, and we just agree to disagree and not talk about it, not try to change each other, because it's very hard to change people's opinion. And so I just wish we were a little bit more tolerant of differences.
Mm-hmm. So, lovely. Well, I have so much enjoyed having this chat with you and hearing about the way you impact the world. And you definitely do. You're an amazing writer. You have created so many things that support people having fun in the world with this adventure quest, and the writing you've done, the organizations you join, and the support that you give to the communities that you live in, especially in Big Bear Lake, California. And thank you, Christie, for being my friend now for decades. And I look forward to sharing this conversation with my audience. Thanks for being
here. Thanks for having me on the show. It was a privilege and an honor. And next time I'm in Salt Lake City, I will definitely give you a call. And if you come to California, let me know.
I will do. All right. Thanks, Christie. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We'll see you next week. Peace and blessings to you. You're not alone. And I love you. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.